Eh, Sometimes you just gotta know when your barber is one of those ones, man. You gotta know when your barber is one of those ones. I appreciate you. You know, when you bald, you gotta just rub your head just to see it's all even all around there. I appreciate my barber. On a whole nother note, it feels like this whole Kendrick and Drake beef is starting to like wrap up, and I think maybe we'll get a few more songs and things of that nature. But I definitely took had a few takeaways that came from this whole beef, the rap beef, and it really had my mind thinking more so from a career perspective. So it was like three or four takeaways that I had after hearing the beef and hearing the music and just that time period that really had me thinking about just my career, the careers of others, um, that still feels applicable to the beat. So hear me out, right? So one of the first takeaways I had was in the beef, their ability to either be strategic or be fast. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. I think the beef played out to however it played out. But from what it felt like, it seemed that Kendrick was really more patient. He was more strategic, and he kind of stayed in his own lane. He prepared, and he was on his own time. And then on the flip side, you had Drake, who y'all know makes music very quickly. And I don't think there's a negative thing about that. But I also noticed how he played into that for his advantage, right? Where you're antagonizing Kendrick like drop, drop, drop. And in this beef, it played out the way it did, where I think a lot of the world felt like Kendrick won. And um, it made me more so think from a career standpoint, like, all right, that's kind of relatable to people's careers where you have people who are very thoughtful and strategic and they think through of all the moves that they make. They don't really rush. They take their times to make those decisions. And then you have other people who sometimes we have to make decisions very quickly, or maybe it's a layoff, or we're getting about to be fired, or we're getting ready to quit because we can't take it anymore. And at those points, it's like it's a rush. It's a more of a quicker decision than when you're more patient and you can kind of do your best to map out your career and be very strategic. And I thought that was something very interesting just about both of their careers as well too. Where and there's no right or wrong answer because they're both really successful people, but you have one side where you just kind of take your time, you're more thoughtful, you're more strategic, more there's more of a method to your vision. And on the other side, people can deliver very, very, very quickly. And I think in the job world, sometimes people make decisions very, very quickly. And for some people, that's perfectly fine for them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because maybe there are other things in life that are just so much more important to them. And for others, it does take time. And I think that there's nothing wrong with taking your time and being patient as well. And I do think that it's actually more helpful because you can really take a second to analyze everything in front of you and make a way more educated decision. So that was the first takeaway I had. The second takeaway I had was like the impact and moment of time factor as well, right? And having to be present and just be there for that moment of time. And I thought that one was key. One, because I low key missed out on the whole moment in time. I'm gonna flex. I was in Saloon for a wedding. Shout out to one of my ships who got married. So we didn't get a chance to. It didn't hit, at least for me, like it normally would if I was at home on the internet and congesting the music like the rest of the world was. Like we were just so wedding focused. So I personally didn't get a chance to. I missed a lot of the moment in time. But then it again tied me back to my career, right? you think about moment in times where places that you're supposed to be at, right? Or opportunities for yourself. And those could be big moments if you're present. But sometimes we'll make these excuses for ourselves and we'll find so many reasons not to go, not to do something, not go to this event, right? We'll go get drinks and stuff like that in a heartbeat. But anytime it's something professional for ourselves, even if we have to pay for it, we're always double guessing. And there's so many excuses that we have as to why we can't do it, right? But if we think about that moment where, like, and I don't know about y'all, but I've been in these situations where I made 99 excuses not to go somewhere. And it was just like, you know what, Dino, just go. And then I went. And then when I went, I realized how much I appreciated actually being there. And it's that moment in time of like, did you really take full advantage of that moment? Or did you kind of just like let it slide by? And I think Kendrick really did a good job of capturing that moment in a sense, in a different way, in a creative way, that he really took advantage of that moment at hand. He was prepared. He's been asking or teasing these battles, and both of them have for years now. And I think when the moment finally came, like, Kendrick took full advantage of the moment versus kind of just like letting it pass. So that was the second takeaway that I noticed from a career perspective. So one of the third things that was a takeaway for me was like storytelling, and I thought Kendrick and Drake did a phenomenal job of it. I'm a Drake fan, so for me, storytelling in Drake, he does a really good job of like painting the picture and making you visualize exactly what it's saying. And during this beef, it really opened up a lot more to me taking a deeper dive into Kendrick's music and his storytelling ability. Like, um, Good Kid, Mad City to me was like a whole story from front to back that I just thought was phenomenally written. And there's a lot of other great artists who have like who tell stories really well. But one of the things I love about their storytelling ability is that it allows you to put you in the shoes of what they're saying and really have you believing or trying to figure out. But it's really just impactful. And when I think about storytelling, I was recently talking at Morris Brown, and we were having a conversation on just that. It was about storytelling, and I was talking to a group of women in college, and they are what's considered non-traditional students. A lot of the women were talking about like they didn't feel like their stories were good enough. They didn't feel like their stories would be relatable. They didn't feel like their stories would be good in an interview. And I think for me that was something that was it was really eye-opening to hear, because we spent most of our time just flipping not the story, but just how you tell the story. And I think how you tell the story is really impactful. So even when I think about like Drake and Kendrick and how they tell stories, that's why um, it's so fun, and it makes us want to be fans of these people because we can relate. And when it comes to storytelling, even especially in interviews, I think we all have phenomenal stories to tell, but it's how we tell those stories. And that's what we were talking about at that university at Morris Brown. And I think that's such a huge thing, especially for like black people, because we have this imposter syndrome of not feeling like we're good enough, but we are, and we have the stories and the experiences to really be successful in the corporate world. We just don't properly know how to always tell our stories and tell our stories in a way that connects with people that don't look like us. Because we'll tell a story and we're able to relate and understand, but there are other people sometimes that don't really understand how we tell stories. So that was, I think, the third takeaway that I had from this rap beef. And the last takeaway I had, damn, let's cut first to sell, man. Shout out to Clarence for real, I appreciate you, big dog. The last takeaway that I had from this beef was it's actually something that my mom been telling me since I was a kid. God rest her soul. But she just always say, just shut your mouth. And sometimes that shit is important. Excuse my French, but sometimes you just have to shut the hell up. And it was funny listening to Rick Ross's diss at Drake, Champagne Moments, and at the end of his verse, he just talks. He was talk at the end of the song. He was referring to like why he unfollowed Drake and why he felt the way he did. And when I listened to Drake's last song, and he kind of did the same thing where he just started explaining himself in the beef. Sometimes it's just not the time and the place. And while Ross did it, it was smooth. It was kind of like when he went at Baby a few years ago, and he started talking at the end of the track. And that may be like a Ross thing, but when Drake did it, it just didn't really hit the same. And sometimes we just have to be quiet. And in corporate, I've noticed that too, where sometimes like you don't have to speak on everything. You don't have to always say something. You don't always have to just talk just to be talking to speak up, because sometimes you'll speak up and it'll hurt you more if you would have just been quiet. And I don't know if sometimes a lot of us don't realize that. And I do know some of us had, like I mentioned before, like imposter syndrome, where we don't even feel good enough to speak up. But I think if you're gonna speak on something, like just be thoughtful about it. Like think through what it is that you want to say, or just sometimes it's okay to just shut up. Like I think that's just okay. And just even if you listen to like back to the beef, like there are a lot of allegations that Drake made against Kendrick, and Kendrick just kind of like just euro stepped and moved around them. Like it's okay to just like shut up sometimes. Like I swear, and not even just in the corporate world, just in life. There's some times where people just need that peace, and just you can just shut the hell up, you know, and that's okay. And I think that'll get people very far as well too. We don't always have to like speak on every little thing. But that was just a few of my thoughts. I thought it was just interesting. I don't know why my mom always like relates to like business and like the corporate world and careers and stuff like that. But that's where kind of my mind went with like Drake and Kendrick. What other random stuff for y'all did y'all take away from this from the beef? Who do y'all think won? Who do you think was the winner? I personally think that Kendrick won. His body of work was just phenomenal, but it was super dope hearing these two lyricists go at it and getting a chance to start reading a lot of the lyrics as well too. It was dope and good for the culture. So, what do y'all think? Hope y'all enjoyed my little tangent, my little rant. But much love.